My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 84 of Legally Clueless. I'm super happy that you're listening to this podcast. If this is not your first time, I've got mad love for you. Thank you for being part of the tribe. If this is your first time ever listening to this podcast, welcome. Join the tribe on Twitter. Of course, the hashtag is Legally Clueless. And on Instagram, just look for Legally Clueless Podcast. Or, you know what, I'll put a link to our IG page in the description of this episode. I also want to say a big thank you because we just surpassed 800,000 online streams. Like, what is that even? Like, what the hell? Legit, that was my reaction because if you listen to episode 1, I think you'll understand my reaction. Like, I don't know. I think in my head at the time, I just didn't think... I think I was just so full of doubt. Doubting myself, doubting my capabilities, doubt all around. So that we've gotten to this point is still mesmerizing for me. Yes, the self-doubt has decreased, but it's still very much there. But nonetheless, I'm really happy that you resonate with this podcast and maybe even it's helped you navigate some things in your life. So later in this episode, you will listen to a story that I really enjoyed recording. Okay, I enjoy recording all the stories, but this one, I guess I can still feel that enjoyment because I only just recorded it last week and it's by Jerry. Listen to this.
I remember Bonnie walked in and I see this guy from the corner of my eye with a leather jacket and a helmet. And I'm like, guy, fafa. I met Bonnie a virgin. When I was in campus, we had a group of friends and we had exchanged chastity rings and said, this you will give us when you get married. When we got married, it was during PEV. And because he was a journalist, he called and you're just hearing gunfire. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is what he must have been going through at that time because we fought about everything. Then I called some guy who was with Bonnie, ask him, umemaliza protest? He says, well, I'm like, has anyone been arrested? Akasema hapana. I'm like, kuna mtu ameumia? Watu wangapi wameumia? Then he says, mmoja. Then I'm like, nani? Then he says, Bonnie, wamemshoot. It was lonely, it was painful, it was confusing. I was very angry. Wow. My life stopped. How do you live when you stop living? And I imagined, what would I tell my children if their father died?
I was super excited to be able to have Njeri on this podcast because her husband, Boniface Mwangi, and their children just released a movie that's basically documenting the last 5 to 7 years of their lives. And it's so powerful. It's called Softy. I'll tell you more about it a little later. I have had I don't know even how to explain it. Like the last 3 days have been full of extremes. It's so weird, like how you can have really good moments and then like an hour or two later have a really trashy moment. Yeah, is there a word for explaining that situation? So let me just rewind a bit. So yesterday, I think I don't know. I think I may have had an emotional breakdown of some sort. I'm still trying to understand it, or possibly I'm overthinking it. But anyways, so I'm part of a program where survivors of sexual violence, which by the way during this pandemic has increased, well, the survivors receive access to safety nets, which is basically like cash transfers to help them remain stable and not reliant on an abuser or have to stay in an abusive environment. You know, they get access to legal counsel, to counseling, to shelters if they need. And so basically my role is to document stories around this program. So yesterday, one of the stories I was recording, which will come in upcoming episodes, so even you prepare to have the same breakdown as I did, I recorded a survivor. Just listening to her story, I don't know, something broke for me. I don't know. We're recording the story. There's a counselor on standby and someone else from the program. I'm crying my eyes out. oh my God. And I'm trying to like monitor the recording because I'm like one woman team, guys, remember. So I'm handling the tech, everything, and then I'm like bawling my eyes out. And this was during the recording. After we finished recording, I learned of statistics in this damn country of ours, Kenya, that made it very clear that this country has done jack shit to protect women. And so the story and these statistics, which again are going to be coming your way in upcoming episodes, made me very angry. In hindsight, at the time I didn't know I was angry and scared, but in hindsight, there was a bit of fear. And it's a fear that I think for very many years I've tucked behind me. And it's a fear of getting raped again. So the story, the statistics, the lack of any form of progress from the government, I don't know, it just reignited that fear that I haven't really felt for a while. So anyway, during the recording, I cry. I think I'm done. I mean, I even like take fun photos outside. In the space that I was in, they had this nice container that has all of this dope woman power graffiti on it. So I've taken photos. I've like packed up all my stuff. I'm thinking I'm calm. And then I get into the car and I call a friend, and we're meant to be doing this project together. So I'm calling him to tell him, this week we need to get ABCD done. And I don't know, I think he could tell from my voice that something was wrong. And he asked me, are you okay? Wait, y'all. I don't know if I'm the only one, like when you've already started crying or when you're on the verge of crying. If somebody asks you, are you okay? It's like the tap gets open, and I was bawling my eyes out. Okay, I just even put on my shades because I'm like, the cars besides me might just be wondering, is this woman fit to be driving really? What's not happening in that car? At a point, I parked on the side of the road in front of this gate that I thought was like an office. And since it was a Saturday, I was like, nobody's in. But then the guard came out and he's like, Madam, what's happening? And my eyes are red. I'd worn my lashes. So I'm there like, the edge of the lash, like the outer side of your eye, I can just feel like it's getting loose. Oh my God. But my friend was still on the phone with me. So I tell the askari, oh no, I'm just lost. I just want to turn. And I proceed to sit in front of the gate for like maybe 5 minutes. Then I managed to drive home, and I was just talking to my friend, and I was so angry, and I just felt like so let down. You know what I mean? Like so let down by everything. And I'm a very hopeful person, but in that moment, I felt like I had 0.0001% of hope, which is now also strange for me. And then also with anger, I don't know how to process anger. It's just an emotion that I really battle with. And so most of the times when I'm angry, I cry. It's probably not even from the anger. It's from the frustration of not knowing, what do I do with this anger? Like, who do I project it on? Who is to blame, It was wild. So I got home, and then I proceeded to watch Enola Holmes, which, by the way, guys, is a really good movie. If you just want something that's not too heavy, to not make you think too hard, but is a light watch, I would recommend that movie. And the guy, Superman, who plays Sherlock Holmes, is kind of cute, so hey. There's some eye candy. Anyway, that's really besides the point. I managed to calm down. Am I better today? I think so. I'm not sure. I'm tiptoeing around my emotions, but I'm going to journal after I finish recording this episode. So yeah, I think that will really help. But I am cognizant of the fact that there are many conversations around sexual violence happening. And I just want to speak to survivors. Please be gentle with yourselves. We actually have to be so gentle with ourselves, especially now. These conversations might take you back to somewhere dark. And then when these conversations are being had online, there are such nonsense takes like, why are you coming to share it on social media? Go and report it to the police. But we did. Yeah, I don't even want to get riled up about it. I was not being gentle with myself. I've been working around sexual violence every week since March, February, actually since January, because that's when we started creating the Safe 247 curriculum. Then March, signed this book deal, and I'm writing about my own survival of rape. And then now this program. So of course I was going to break. I didn't see it then, but in hindsight, I'm like, but chick, what were you expecting? What did make me feel better last night and even this morning is actually the song of the week. I just decided to make it the song of the week because of how yesterday it soothed me into today. I've had it on repeat. It really does make me happy. It's a song by Kamau, and he features Taliba Safia. I hope I've said her name right. The name of the song is Mint. I haven't really chambuad the lyrics, like really gone through the lyrics the way I normally do with songs, because you know how I love words. Whenever I listen to this song, it reminds me of this specific thing, all right? When you're in love with somebody, love somebody, or feel for somebody in a very intimate way, and you are kissing this particular person, because obviously you have to breathe, so you have to take breaks. That space between you people, sometimes you could even break into a smile. That space is such a happy space. It's such a happy moment. I don't know if I'm the audio. Are you guys kissing right? You're meant to feel these emotions. But yeah, that space is this song. For me, I do need to go through the lyrics more to really understand the meaning of it. I don't even know why it's called Mint, but that's what it means to me. And it always just makes me so happy, and it's so calm and soothing. The link to it is in the description of this episode. I'm getting a bit carried away while talking about it. But rewind to sometime last week, I watched a film that I think everybody needs to watch, especially if you are in Kenya. Honestly, not only Kenya, everybody needs to watch this, but I'm saying Kenya because we're gearing up for our elections in 2022. Please do not let the election time come before you have watched Softy the film. It's a film about Boniface Mwangi, Njeri Mwangi, and their kids. And obviously we know Boniface Mwangi as an active citizen, a mobilizer, and he even ran for a member of parliament in the last elections. This entire process he's gone through, from being a very active citizen to running in the elections, came with threats to his life and threats to the lives of Njeri, his wife, and his kids. Her and the kids had to leave the country for 9 months because of their safety, to keep safe as he was running in the last elections. And so I watched the film. I'll tell you my take about it a little later, but Njeri is on 100 African Stories in this episode, sharing her story. 100 African Stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
So my name is Njeri. Njeri means daughter of a warrior. I am from Nairobi, Kenya, born and bred. I was born in Nairobi. I went to school in Eastlands, Umoja 1 Primary School. And then when I was 8, my mom, I think my parents there was so much going on. So she sent me to boarding school when I was 8. It crushed me. Like, I don't know if my mom ever thought or knew how bad it crushed me. But I quickly adjusted. Well, not quickly. I eventually adjusted. And so I was in boarding from 8 till campus. My younger sister joined me when she also hit 8, 9. So I was her elder sister, and the age difference is 3 years. So I kind of took care of her through boarding school. When I'd come home for holidays, we'd go to Shags in Muranga. Would pick coffee, get paid per, kasuku. I would milk cows, take the cows to the river with my cousin. Most of my cousins would come to Shags, and we would have a big meal. It was a small kitchen room, that 3-stone, and it's smoky, and you open the window and it gets too smoky. The firewood is kept just above where the hut meets uko at the tip. Then underneath there was a whole rack of firewood, so that we would pick it and would cook, and my grandma would serve all 16 of us, and the plates would pass, and then we'd wash our legs. That big bakuli metal bucket to be put in the fire. Then you'd all get a little wash your legs. Then you wash a candle and you go to the main house to sleep. Then in the morning, breakfast was a whole bash. It was a simple life. I enjoyed my childhood. I guess I learned to, instead of stay bitter, because and maybe I did stay bitter for a while until I was married and with child that I realized that heaviness lifted about being sent to boarding school when I was so young. I think when I got married and because we got our son and then got married like just about a year in that time, just the complexities of life and relationship and family, I thought of my mom and thought of all the choices she had to make, and sending me to boarding was one of them. And she thought she was doing the best for me. So whatever judgment I had placed on her, we'd never had this conversation. So whatever judgment I'd placed on her, it just lifted. I was like, imagine I get you. It was not the nicest thing, but I understand why you would do something like that. So I finished high school. I go into acting. When I was in high school, I did a lot of theater. I hated the thought of going to the field. So anything that would keep me out of the field, unless we are cleaning up, I would opt for. So I did dancing, I did acting, I did singing, I did music. But music I did out of passion. I loved music. And acting, it was so... You know, the way you lose yourself in a character and you can be this person and say it this way and do that and that. I loved that, and I still do. So when I came out of high school, immediately I joined Heartstrings, and I acted with Akina Mudamba, with Sami, with another lady called Carol. I mean, these people have gone and become big, majina kubwa, you know, Akina Benta. And I had such a blast. But then my mom is very strict. She rules by the rod. She was like, what are you doing now? You need to go to school. So come January, I was going into campus, and my show was in theaters that same weekend. So I'm supposed to go to school on Wednesday, Thursday. My mom is like, me, I've paid fees, but my show is this weekend and I'm really looking forward to it. I've publicized and all. And she says I can't. And I remember we had a really, really bad exchange, but I was like, by the way, I'm doing this. And I did, and I really had a blast. But I knew that was the last time I was doing that, because I was like, I can't be in this kind of relationship with my mom. So I didn't do it again. So I go to campus. I was studying communications, public relations. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. And I trust my brother with my life. So my bro told me, Jerry, mimi nimecheki zile vitu unaweza do. I think this will suit you very well. And I guess my bro really does know me, because I did it, and it comes so easily, so naturally. I'm a people person. I listen. I easily relate with people. And then I completed that. And when I did, I loved hospitality. So me and travel, man, they just tell me where. Pay the ticket. Just tell me where I need to be. So I went into hotel. I worked in Naivasha for a year. And while at the same time, I was doing a lot of experiential training. So I'd train companies on team building. I did a lot of team building activities, mostly outdoor stuff. Then in 2006, I'm hanging out with my friends. I need also to say that I was raised in church. Yeah. So I'm a Christian and a strong believer, a born again Christian, so to speak. And so I was in hospitality. So when that year ended, there was a sermon series in church. I go to Mavuno. And at that time, the sermon was very controversial. Sex in the pulpit. And I'm like, about time we talked about some things. And guys were like, manzi, no, we can't start talking about things like that in the church. I'm like, but why? This is what people are doing outside. This is what the congregation is doing. So you can't say that it's not comfortable. Suddenly the lights in the church have been put on and we want to duck. No, let's have this conversation. So when we came out from church, we were with a group. You know, Steers used to do this buy one, get one free ice cream. So we'd all gone to buy one, get one free ice cream. And we had a big table at Steers Wabera. I remember Bonnie walked in. Like, it was a big oval table upstairs. So I see this guy I was seated on the edge behind the stairs. And I see this guy from the corner of my eye with a leather jacket and a helmet. And I'm like, guy, fafa. Like, everything just went into slow motion. There was a movie called Renegade. You remember Renegade? Yes! My God, I was like, this is not happening. So anyway, he walks in and goes to the guy on the other side. I felt like it was a tease. I had to pinch myself out of it by the way you were. And I was the one who was talking. So you can imagine how I completely lost my line of thought. Anyway, he went to that guy and they talked a little bit. Here, I'm trying to gather my thoughts and not stare and nini. And then he left. But now when he was leaving, again, the world stopped kidogo. I was like, what? That is the closest I have come to Renegade after my TV. Like, Renegade just jumped out. I was like, hey, okay. Whew. Kidogo hapo, he'd confused me. And I thought that was it. Yeah. As in, I did not imagine there'd be, I don't think I'll meet Renegade, you know? So even him, I just let the guy go. Incidentally, when he was standing there for those 2 minutes of his life, he saw me from the other end of the table. And he was like, wow, that chick is fly. But more importantly, I love the way she's expressing herself and making her point, arguing her point. And so he made a point to ask the guy he had come to see to give him my number. And the guy he asked was my friend. I was like, "Sizi kupatia number tu hivyo. I need to ask her and all." He's like, "Okay, wait, don't ask her. Because now if you tell her I'm just asking for her number, that'll be so from the blue." So for a whole month, he thought, how do I get this chick's number? He was like, wait, I am a photographer. I shoot for Pulse. I can tell I'm shooting for Pulse. I want her to be a cover model. So he said, please call her and tell her this is what I want. So the guy was like, okay, sawa. So he calls me and I'm like, wait. That guy, the biker guy, that guy, like while stopping guy, he said, yeah. And I'm like, okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then he calls me and tells me, yeah, I'd like to take a photo shoot of you. Would you like to come and see what blah, blah, blah. I can come and check what you'd like to wear. So we did the photo shoot. And then, as they say, the rest is history. Because in between there's so many things. He took me for a ride because in exchange, I told him, fine, if you want a photo of me, you have to do something for me next year. Are you paying me? Is Standard paying me? No? Okay. So then you give me a ride on your bike to any place I want and then you can take my photo. He said, deal. He comes and picks me up with a spare helmet and a spare leather jacket. Akiskuyo. I would have flown like a bird. I remember we hit Ngong Road and I was screaming the whole way. The adrenaline, the excitement was just... So we rode... I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember what we did. I remember the ride and that thrill. But when he took me back home, it was almost 10 p.m. And now he was talking about how he's grown up and what he wishes would be different and how now there are more people that are growing up the way he grew up than when he was growing up. So if there was like 100 people, now there are 300. And he didn't like that. He was like, it shouldn't be. Either we maintain 100 or we should actually be trying to lower that number. Nobody should grow up the way I did. And I was like, wow, Kwani, how did you grow up? So he tells me about his life and I'm like, what? There's a whole other life that I know nothing about. And then now he takes me to the places he grew up. He talks to me about his mom and he shows me, specific places which have stories. So there are memories attached to it. And I was completely sucked in. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the story of millions of people. Our dating period was all of 6 hours or something. That bike ride and that date and that take me back home ride. I met Bonnie a virgin. Believe it or not. A lot of people laugh about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm those ones. So I met Bonnie when I was a virgin. And when I broke my virginity, I felt like, oh my God, my days are over in this earth. Like me, the God I serve, surely, what the heck is this? Yeah. What have I just done? I felt like I needed to go and prostrate myself before the Lord and get cleansing and get, exercised and a lot of stuff. And I felt like I disappointed my family, my parents. They've raised as well. I have let down the church. I have let down my siblings. I have let down my community. I felt like I'd just failed in life. When I was in campus, we had a group of friends and we had exchanged chastity rings and said, this you will give us when you get married. Okay, so we had a bond. But now I couldn't keep my ring. So what I did, I removed it and I gave it to Bonnie. I told him, you must be the custodian of this because now it does not mean anything to me anymore. And so I called him and I told him my pregnancy test is positive. By then we had broken up. It had been like 6-7 weeks because I was like, even if we were on to a good thing, it's over. There's no way any good relationship can start like this. Of course, now I know better. So I had cut it off. I told him, I don't want anything to do with you, blah, blah, blah. This is just wrong. It was never going to work anyway. Because for me, when we were together was it even a month? It was like, this life can't be real. I was in a happy place. The one, I was like, hi, like, I know this won't last, but let me just enjoy it while it does. And I didn't think it was going to last long because surely life can't be that good all your life. So when that happened, I was like, it's a wrap. And then I called him and I told him I'm pregnant. How he received it on the other end, I nearly dropped my phone. I was like, he was so excited, Adele. My God. I'm like, kwani ulikuwa umepangia hii story? It was the first time and you're happy. You're not even shocked, surprised. He was very happy. But me, I just thought, okay, my whole world came crumbling down. Because then I was like, I'm going to be a mom. I'm the first of my friends. So it was just very difficult for me to deal with that for like 5-6 months. I kind of withdrew, and I don't know how we survived that time. I think he's also a very strong man, because I have never been that bad. That was my worst self, and still he stayed. But I also realized wherever he went, he was the father of this baby. So whatever happens, we are in this guy is going to be in my life forever. So then after a while, I kind of styled up. When my baby came the first time, my pregnancy was more emotionally, mentally difficult because of having to reconcile myself with this newfound state that was not for now, was for after I was married. But now I'm having to be that now and not married. I really struggled with that, but I had a very supportive community around me. And I remember the lady who then was my best maid told me to just learn to be in the moment, whatever that moment is. I didn't know what that meant at that time, but I realized that I can only be pregnant and just be in that pregnant state. When I need to worry about breastfeeding or childbirth, I'll get there. So don't bring it here. Imagine it's coming, so wait till it comes. And for every season of my pregnancy and labor, and even the baby when my son was born, there was what I call sufficient grace, more than sufficient grace. Now my mom, who rules with an iron, she completely embraced me. I did not tell her I was pregnant until I was 5 months. Worse still, she didn't learn it from me. I told my brother and my elder sister, who then were like, "Wait, sasa tutambia Maadhia." What? But we have to tell her. So they go for dinner, and then it's almost morning because they're trying to get to it. They're like, "Hey, okay, fine, we really have to say it now." So they tell my folks. My mom just said, "Oh, nice, okay, she can come home." I was living with my friends, we were sharing rent, and says, "Yeah, she can come home even tomorrow." And my bro calls me and tells me, tumebonga na Madhe. I'm like, I was like waiting to be told, just don't go anywhere near home until that baby is born, or just wait, we'll work this out. But he told me, my mom said I can go home. I'm like, did you tell her I am pregnant? As in? And that night I didn't sleep. And then she sent me a very sweet message that same night. She said, "Njeri, I love you. You're fine and everything is going to be fine. Please come home." Me, I cried so much, because I was like, I have really disappointed you. This is not the way you saw my life. And I know you had such big dreams for me. And I know I have your support, but this is not the way. I'm sorry. And I can't say sorry. How do I say sorry now? I moved back home. She took care of me. And when my son was born, she only gave him to me to breastfeed, because that's the one thing she couldn't do. But she took care of him, until when I left the house. So 4 months before our son is born, I stopped fighting and kicking and screaming and being a brat. and he oh God bless his soul, he's just so supportive throughout that period, as much as I would let him. And even when I didn't let him, he still sent flowers to my office. He still brought me, he found out what I liked from my mom or from my sister or from our house help. Then he sent them. He still brought them himself. He still came to see me even when I didn't want to see him, and he'd sit across the room. And then after an hour or two, he'd leave because I wouldn't talk to him. He was such a gentleman. And so that our son is born. And I remember the day our son was born, he came, he held the baby. I remember him holding him like it would break. And then he gave him over, and then he left. He was born in the morning at 6:30. And then he left. He didn't call. He didn't come the whole day. Until almost 9 p.m. I asked him, "Where have you been?" He said, "Wow, I can't, I'm so overwhelmed." He said he was so overwhelmed by this whole new responsibility and like the love that he was tagged at him. I can't explain it. It's almost physical. You can almost feel it, like touch it like this. And then he was always there, always there. He'd come and see us every day. Literally, come rain, come shine. He'd come and see us every day. So this one time, we're having Bible study. But then he invites his colleagues from the office. And he doesn't tell me. So me, I've made dinner for Bible study. We used to be about 12 guys. Then he comes with another almost 12 people. Even if an African woman, even if you're stretching your pot, you can only stretch it so far. So I'm pissed off. I'm like, you should have told me, man, that you're coming with your colleagues. Then somewhere he'd traveled. He'd gone to South Africa. He'd been to Robben Island and so he had recorded and he said, "Before we start, I want us to play something." So I'm seated at the very corner of the sitting room, and it's it's more rectangle, and everyone is around. So people from his office knew what was happening. Me, I'm the only one who didn't know. So he plays this thing, and we're seeing him in South Africa. We're watching, and then somewhere he keeps throwing lines, like a hook here, a hook there. Oh, I'm here thinking about you. I really miss you. I want to be with you. I'm like, so now I'm starting to get flustered. I'm like, Allah. So we watch, and then at the end it slows down, and he's on his knee, and he says, "Will you marry me?" On screen. So, the way you're watching something, just go, you're like... So when he kneels over there, he comes and kneels here. Then my mom was holding our son, Uko. She almost dropped him. She's like, oh. Then my siblings got me from out of the corner and put me somewhere where there was more space now, because we're so many people in this house. And then, I don't know what I was holding. They took everything from me, and then now Bonnie's kneeling right in front of me. And... I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, do I shake my parents are right behind him. Like, I'm facing my folks. Do I shake his hand? Do I give him a hug? What do I do? So I give him a hug. Oh, the Christian self in me. I give him a hug. That was his way of proposing. When we got married, so I've grown up in a very tight family. My siblings and also my cousins. We come from a very close-knit family. Again, you assume that this is what everyone has, or at least majority, or you don't think about it so much because this is what life is, right? You remember Bonnie has come from the other side of the bridge. So I don't know what his dreams for his family are like. I know what his dreams for the country, and they feel just fine with me. I wanted 7 children.
Wow.
I know. I wanted 7 kids, but I quickly realized, Kenya, all the best, girl, all the best. So Kenya, even then, like 15 years ago, I was like, no, maybe not 7. We live in a nice place. The kids go to a nice private school, and then we'll have a car, we'll have a puppy. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that looks about right. We can be having picnics, we can be visiting the family, his family, my family. I mean, yeah, I'm married now. Nice. Hey. Yeah, pause right there. Wow. When we got married, it was during PV 2007, 2008, and we got married 2008 in March. And because he was a journalist, unasikia tu gunfire na uko nyuma. He calls and you're just hearing gunfire. Kidogo you can't get hold of him. Then kidogo in the news you hear a journalist was shot, and then I don't want to call him because I don't want to imagine if he doesn't answer that it might have been him. And that was a very difficult time for me, like extremely difficult, because seriously he could have been shot. And he was covering the elections in Kibera. He's a Mwangi in a very low territory. So it scared the living daylights out of me every day. Our son is not 1. He might not have a father by the time he's hitting 1. So we get married during this time. And so elections, the violence continues. January goes on, February. And then Feb 28th, there's a handshake. And there is peace. Like, as you are, restore settings. But so many people have died. So many people have lost their property. So many people have left. I mean, so much has happened to so many lives. So we get married literally 1 week after that peace treaty was signed. And now, and they lived happily thereafter begins. There was no happily thereafter. Wow. I think post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is what he must have been going through at that time, because we fought about everything. Everything. If I wanted formula, if I wanted diapers, anything I asked for, anything I mentioned, imeisha. Even when I was not asking for money. Wow, my goodness. He'd go to work like at 6 or 5 a.m. He'd come home at 1 or 2. So I'm never seeing this guy. And when I see him, we're fighting. And I'm like, I was so disillusioned. I'm like, gosh, marriage, what? My parents have displayed, a relationship for me. This is the relationship, and this is what I know relationships are like. What the heck is this? And I remember thinking, I just want to go back home. My mom didn't fukuza me. And that year was so, so, so difficult. I think it's one of the most difficult years of our relationships. But then I tried to get him to speak to someone, and nothing worked until he did the street exhibition, Picha Mtaani. And for him, a lot of what people would say during the exhibition, it helped put words into what he was feeling. And there was people who were violators, perpetrators, victims, and people who came to the exhibition said, me, I'm sorry. I was under the influence. We had been paid. It was stupid. I wish I could undo it. I'm sorry. Others just came and said, mi hata sijui tulifanya nini. Mi, tulikuwa tu in the motion. It was in the heat of the moment. Lakini nimeona what we did. I would never do this again. And others came and they had been running since 2007. And that moment, it's like it gave them a chance to stop and feel like, guy, I can stop. I'm not in danger. You can see me. You acknowledge that I lost my husband or my child or my property. And people cried. And it was a nationwide exhibition. So for me, that was a very powerful time for Kenyans, but also for my husband. It was a turning point because then he dealt to a certain extent with what he saw. Because 1 minute he's somewhere, someone is walking across the street, like in a blink of an eye, that person is in pieces of a human being, or someone has been cut or shot. I don't know if I was relieved about him leaving his job. I think I just needed him to find himself and deal with whatever demons he was fighting. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, he's sweating, and then he would not sleep. But he never talked about what he was going through, what he was dealing with, and I just wanted him to know that I'm there for him. The very first time and he's given a talk about this, the day I stood up alone. I was watching TV, it was 2009, June 1st. It was those my celebrations. So, the president gets up to speak, then cameras move. There's this guy who's been manhandled, like, whoa. Like, oh my gosh. I said, aki mtoto wa mtu aki woi. That is somebody, huyu hata sijui. I was like, that, I hope he's fine, or he will be fine. And the thing ended. The president gave his address and the event ended. Then someone called me, and from Njeri uko wapi? I said, I'm at home. I was actually on bed rest. And he told me, umekaa tu kwa nyumba na bwana yako amechukuliwa. I'm like, huh? Nana, what? Hey, you're just seated there in the house. Your husband has been arrested. We don't even know where he's been taken. I'm like, by who? Why? Ujona, tulikuwa wapo Nyayo, ameshikwa. Then everything just replayed in my head. That mtoto wa wenyewe. Ni baba ya mtu, ni bwana ya mtu. Na huyo mtu ni mimi. Na huyo mtoto ni mtoto wetu. I was on bed rest. I had a miscarriage. That time, and I couldn't leave. I was in so much pain. And I remember Caroline Mtoko called me and told me, Jerry, they've taken your husband. We don't know where they've taken him, but we'll find him. Don't worry. She didn't know how I was or where I was. She just told me we'll find him. And she was the one person that I was holding on to, because I was like, this one, at least people know who she is and she can push her way through. If no one tells me anything, I can call her. And because she's called me herself, I should be, surely she'll tell me. And my mom came and my sister-in-law came to check on me because they knew I was on bed rest. And they told me not to worry. I'm like, you guys know nothing, but thanks. Then I was called. I was told they'd taken him to Langata. So my mom and my sis went to Langata. Then they called me and told me they've seen him and he's okay. I'm like, this is how people get told that he's dead. You first create a screensaver. Yeah, then when you touch, you're like, oh, that's what it is. And I was so shattered, my God. I was like, I can't handle. Then Caroline Mtoko called me and told me he's in Langata. I'm like, basi ni ukweli. Then he was taken to hospital that night. He didn't come home that night. They held him in I think, industrial area. They moved him. But then he came home, in the morning, the following day. And me, in all my pain and with all the emotional, mental, I don't know what to call it, I had gone through, I looked at him and I was just glad that he was home. Like, forget what has happened, what is happening to me right now, that you're standing here and I'm standing here. And I just held him for Guy. I needed to feel that this is real. He's here himself. You don't have to say anything. And because he had sprained his ankle, at least there was nothing more severe, physically. But he was standing there. I could see him. I could feed him. I could massage his leg. The other time that was super stressful for me was when our last born graduated from kindergarten. And I told him, I don't care that there's a protest or whatever it is. It's your son's day. Hii Kenya si yako peke yako. Let Kenyans come out. Your son needs you. So let's go and be with our son. So he comes. Then he says, I have to go. I'm like, I know. So he spends some time with the kids during this kindergarten graduation, takes photos, and then he leaves. And then the director of this Softy the film answers a call just when this whole thing is over, and he says hello. He didn't say anything else. The only word he said was hello and okay. After like an almost 1 minute conversation, how long 60 seconds is, he says 1 minute later he says okay. Then he hangs up. And I'm trying to read his face. He just, there was nothing to read. He's not scared. It's not funny. I'm like, whatever that was. So I get into my car. My daughter has gone with someone else. My son had also wanted to go with someone else. So then they've gotten a ride with a neighbor. But our last one wanted to be with me. So we get into the car and we drive out. Then I call some guy who was with Bonnie, ask him, umemaliza protest? He says, well, see, unajua tumetawanishwa. I'm like, has anyone been arrested? Akasema hapana. I'm like, lakini kuna mtu ameumia? Wamedua, unajua walitupatia gas nini. I'm like, watu wangapi wameumia? Then there's a moment of silence. Then he says, mmoja. My blood stopped flowing. I'm on the bypass. I'm on the southbound bypass. And I'm like, why did he keep quiet? Why the silence? Then I'm like, nani? Then he says, Bonnie, wamemshoot. I hung up. And then I remember Soko and that his monologue conversation. I'm like, what? I'm like, does that mean he's dead? What are you saying? I'm like, I can't take that from him. I called Soko. I tell him, Soko, you knew? Then he says, yeah. I'm like, and why didn't you tell me? He said, I didn't know any more information. I didn't want to give you half-baked information. I wanted to find out what was going on. And I didn't want to have any conversation with the kids there. I'm like, do this. You call whoever is around him. Make sure nobody calls me. No one calls me about anything. If he's dead, you're the one who's going to tell me. You figure out how you're going to find me and tell me. If he's being taken to hospital, you call me and tell me. If he's in ICU, you call me and tell me. I don't want to hear anything from anyone. You're the one who's going to tell me. And then he says, okay. See, I need my blood to flow. Otherwise, I'll die myself. I stop the car. I look at my son. He was asleep. As in, peacefully asleep. He's had a very good morning. And I leave the car. I cry. Like, I'm by myself. I pour out. I cry so much. Luckily, no one called me. If anyone did, I don't remember. The rest is... And I drive home. All the kids are there. We're happy. I'm here in hell and I'm here in heaven all at the same time. I'm burning on one side, and on this side it's flowers and roses and all beautiful things, and they can't see this other side of me, so you have to keep this side. So I stay with them for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, keeping this side, but then this side is starting to burn into this good side. I tell them, I have to go to town, I need to take care of something, I'm coming back. I get out and I called Soko and I tell him so. Then he tells me, no, ako sawa, wanaenda Hosi. I'm like, what state is he in? Hata nimebonga naye, they've told me he's okay. It was a tear gas canister that was shot in his chest. I'm like, and how is that not severe? How is he talking? Me, I don't know Njeri, lakini anaongea. In fact, hata after ashutiwe, walirudi wakamit sijui wapi. I was like, so he even walked. Okay, sawa. I pick my good self up. I jump onto my bike. I'm going to meet them in hospital. I think I know where they're going. So I call. I say, mko wapi? Then he says, wako Kenyatta Hospital. I'm like, okay, sawa. I switched off my phone and I went to the salon. I went to the salon, I had a manicure, I had a massage, I had a pedicure, like for 3 hours. Oh, I like the color. No, let's change this color. Then I go back home, tiptoeing. I could not deal. So I go home and I find he's seated there and he's eating with the kids and they're all here. They're like a magnet. Me, I'm like, how is this man sitting here today after he's been shot in the chest, like close range? So in 2016 November, he launches his book, Unbounded. And it was a whole, event at Alliance Francaise. And then some guy on that day I don't remember, for the life of me, we had a lot of security detail. I think my husband senses sometimes, and he's done that even before. During a protest, the day before, he said, something doesn't feel right. So he called his friend and told him, I need 10 people to surround me during this protest. And on that day of the protest, there was someone who came at him with a dagger. And I was like, always trust your gut. So on this particular day, we have a lot of security around. And this guy comes and holds my hand and tells me, he comes and stands by next to me, by the way. We're looking, we're listening. And then he says, I have a message for your husband. I'm like, Then he says, your life is at risk. You need to do something. Kwa sababu, you're going to be killed. I'm like, who? He says, it's all here in the letter. Then he gives me a brown envelope. I'm like, okay, thanks. Like, what do I run out? Like, am I about me? I'm being killed now? Who? But it's all in the letter. Okay. So again, we had a lot of security detail. They come and take the envelope. They read it and we find out the following day, it's a whole It's a whole story. And the threat is such that, so my husband, we've been threatened so many times. And I think if my husband wrote the kind of threats and when they came, there would be just so many. And I would probably say 90% of those I don't know. But I can tell when something is off, but he won't tell me. And I'm like, it's okay. That you shield me and protect me from those ninis is fine. But this particular one, it has come to me. Yeah. And I don't know the nature of this threat. And he says that he's such a high profile that it is easier to get at him through his wife or his children. And that is where I draw the line. I'm like, why? I'm not going to sit around and wait for whatever that threat might be for you to be threatened. They might kill me, they might abduct me, they might harm the children. I'm like, imagine I can't. That's when we left the country. Because for me, I was like, now this is just, I can't think. I look behind my shoulder like I've stolen. A border rides past me when I'm in the car. I'm like, they could just open fire and shoot. And I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, I won't. Being in the States, I don't even know if to call it lonely. But yes, I think it was lonely. It was painful. It was confusing. I was very angry. Wow. My life stopped. How do you live when you stop living? I need to do better than this. My kids might listen to this one of these days. But I still want them to know that it wasn't easy because my life completely stopped. I was taken in by a friend and I lived in their basement and they took me like their family, like they'd been waiting for me. Like this was a time that they knew was coming and I would be coming to live with them. They provided for me everything. They mothered me, they sistered me, they parented me. They gave me more than I thought I ever needed. They clothed me, they fed me and my children. I mean, the States is hard as it is. But they took us in. For me, I could not find, I don't know how I found the will to leave one day after another. I guess my kids, because I was like, these guys have given me everything. And the most I can do is give back. How do I give back? They have to go to work. I don't. So I made sure I washed back at the roof. Corner to corner. I cleaned, I cooked. I made sure their kids, I was taking care of 6 children, my 3 and their 3. I made sure that everything was top notch. When they came home, I almost removed their feet and put it on a chair. So you don't have to do anything. I'll serve you. Hata ninaweza kuosha. As in, how do I give back? I'm eternally grateful that they opened their home and their hearts because they didn't make me feel like a victim of anything. They didn't pry into my life. They didn't judge. They didn't question. And even if they might have, they never made me feel in any way that my time here is, atunaishiamen. If anything they said, you don't need to go. I don't think it's safe for you to go yet. And I kept telling myself, when will it be safe? Like, what am I doing now? I don't know what my future even looks like. If I was to even stay here, what would I be doing? How would I be doing it? As in, where should I be thinking about how I'm going to survive here? Or should I be thinking about reuniting my family and bringing us back together? That for me was a very difficult time. And then I could not support my husband. I'm like, this guy is doing this for the very first time. I have no idea how he's managing. I don't know how he's coping. We're not able to talk. I'm angry at him and not at him, at the system. I'm mad that I had to leave to be safe. Why? Our children, I've tried to protect them and I've told them we'd come for a white Christmas. And then I told them we can't afford the ticket. We're trying to get some money to raise the ticket. Daddy's working very hard so that he can afford tickets for all of us. So when he gets the money and we buy the tickets, we'll go back. So that, I think, must be the most difficult time of our relationship, of my life, of our family generally. My kids, maybe I will find out what they thought and felt during that time. Or now knowing what they will know, what they think. My oldest is he's older, he's more mature. He can ask you some questions. Mom, just tell me. I'm like, tell you what, things are not okay. I know, I can tell. I'm like, And when you're asked that, I don't hide from him. I may not tell him the whole truth 100%, but I'll tell him, you're right. This is what's happening and it scares me. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just a little bit anxious, But I know it's going to be okay, but I'm just a bit anxious about it. And I'll tell him what it is. But I remember this one time, I don't remember what triggered this conversation. And I think maybe we had lost a very close friend. And I imagined, what would I tell my children if their father died? How do I explain it to them? Because they kept saying that our friend was coming back. They kept asking me, when is he coming back? And I'm like, he's not coming back. Like, he's gone. How do I explain to them what death means? And I told them that I'll put you on a bus and I'll tell the driver to where to let you off. And I won't put you all at the same time. Like that, you go, you stop there. Then a while later, the other one will come and alight, and then the other one will come and alight, and then I'll come and alight, and maybe someone else will come. Even when you stand at the bus stop, you'll see many people alighting. And such is death. When you go. You get off the bus of life. You don't get back into that bus. That bus continues moving without you in it. So if Dad died, he'd be the first one out of the bus of life. And that would mean that bus continues moving with everyone in it, without him in it. And it's very difficult, and it's why we are so sad, because we lost our friend, because he's not in this bus of life. And I don't know if they understood that. Maybe now that they're older, they have a better understanding of what death is. But for me, I felt like at that time, I was also trying to prepare myself so that if anything happened, I had a reference. I'll tell them, you remember what I told? Because they'd ask me when Dad is coming back, because they were so young. What do I tell them? But you remember what I told you about the bus and about the bus of life? And so I was kind of preparing myself for a difficult conversation. God forbid I had to have it. And that's, I think for me, that's been the most difficult conversation I've had to have with them. When I first watched Softy was in December last year. So Soko has filmed our lives over a long period of time, and then he has put all those things together, and I don't know what material he has, because I'm not the camera. So he has had moments with my husband, he's had moments with our kids, he's had moments with me, some of which I told him by the honest to me. And even for me to trust him and, to say some things that I said to him in confidence, I think he knew what to not use, but I didn't know what he had pieced together. And also knowing that he didn't do this alone. There are many people who have seen this many hours of footage that have decided to pick what is now Softy. And I'm like, that's a lot of life. That's a lot of my life on camera. So when I first saw it, I saw stuff about Bonnie I didn't know. I saw my children struggle. And I felt like, oh my gosh, you have had to deal with so much. And I really cried. Aki, I'm a crier. I cried so much. I didn't know what to say. I just told Soko, you know what? That's a lot to process. Because then again, when you look at it, it takes me back to times in my life that I thought I have dealt with a lot of things, and I'm okay. Yeah, but then when I start talking about some things, it comes from all the way from my toes right into my eyes. Like, pew! I don't know where it comes from, but it takes me back there with the fears, with the anxieties, with the extreme joy. It's such a mix of emotions that is so overwhelming. So for me, that film it took me back to so many moments in my life, so many of them. Some I'm happy to remember, some I'm like, I never wanted to remember this. What you see as a minute is a week or a month of my life. But you see a minute and then another minute. And for me, that's a very long time. This film was shot in 5 years. And also it exposes me because I'm a very private person. So to see this whole very big screen, I was like, oh my God. Simkunja kidogo tu vile it's too big, it's too much. And then I saw it again. So I saw it in December with just Bonnie and the director. Then I saw it again at Sundance when we were in the States. And this time I watched it with the kids. And they felt what I felt. We found out stuff about each other that we didn't know. And they also really cried. So again, it takes me back into all those moments. And then I feel for them. And then seeing themselves, see themselves. How overwhelmed I was feeling now times 2 for myself and for them. This film is about Njeri and her children, but Njeri is a people, is a woman somewhere in the world, not just in Kenya. It's not just a black woman. So Njeri first is a woman, then is a mother, and is a wife. And when you see this film, you see you as a woman, as a mother or a wife, you see yourself in this film. So my hope is that you will see yourself, and you will see your children, and you will see your spouse, and you will see your country. So I hope people see themselves in the characters in this film. And when I say characters, I mean through my life, through the life of my children, through the life of my husband, and then determine for themselves that they want to be counted for something, to not allow themselves ever again to leave people who are human rights defenders Just go and wenda tu. You risk it all. It's fine. If you die, another one will rise. We kill our own activists by not supporting them. And support, I'm not saying give them money, CG what. If there's a protest, show up. If there's money that needs to be given so that placards can be done, t-shirts can be done, then you can send in your contribution. If you can't be in the streets and you're a keyboard warrior, imagine keyboard that thing until those things disappear from the nini and then replace it. Find your place. This is war. Find your place in this war and occupy it fully, because we can't all be secretaries. We can't all be drivers. But we need secretaries, we need cooks, we need drivers. You look at what's happening in Nigeria. People are in the streets and they're cooking for the people who are uko. So what will it take for us? What are we waiting for? Because our country needs to change. We can't continue like this. For how long? We must want better for ourselves. But no one is bringing us better. We have to go and get it ourselves.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. That story is so powerful. It's just as powerful as Softy the film, which I really want you to go and watch. I've always been so intrigued by Njeri. I remember the first time I saw her we were somewhere in Machakos County for a Feature Uchi initiative. So Feature Uchi is a program by my friend Billion. He actually makes sure school children have uniforms to go to school in. What happens is, you go to a school with tailors and everything, and, you play games with the kids as the tailors have taken the measurements and they're making their uniforms. It's a really brilliant program. So I remember we were in Machakos County. It was so hot. And Jerry and a couple of other girls came and they're part of this bikers team. And I was like, these chicks are so badass. But I remember being very intrigued by her and wondering, I wonder what her story is. And this is years ago. But if you watch Softy the film, I assure you, you will feel each and every emotion of hers, because she really is the core of that film. And she lets us into such vulnerable spaces in her life. I don't know, it's one of those films you just have to watch. So in the description of this episode, there's a link to the Instagram page of Softy the film, the official page, and they post all the screening details there. Right now, I think it's screening in various cinemas in Nairobi and also in Eldoret. Obviously, with time, there will be more screenings in other counties. If you're not in Kenya, still go to the page because it's available in other countries as well. And as I said at the beginning, everyone has got to watch this film. I'm actually in the process of trying to buy a couple of tickets to do a giveaway on my Instagram. Hopefully this week we'll have that figured out. But in the meantime, link in the description of this episode to Softy the Film's Instagram page. Head over there now. Back to stories. If you want to share your story on this podcast, all you have to do is record a 1-minute story demo and send it to the Legally Clueless hotline number that is +254 768 628 790. I mean, the story demo is just you telling me a bit about the story you want to share, and we'll take it from there. And also, if you listen to an episode in this story, we're all one big happy tribe. If you listen to a story, you're just like, oh my God, I've been through that as well. It makes you think something and you want to share that. You can record an audio note and share that with me as well on the Legally Clueless hotline number.
Hi Adele, this is Sharon, and first off, I'd love to say how I seriously relate to your podcast. Almost every story, I just feel it so deeply, and your podcast just so does something for me. I don't know how to explain this, but I haven't found another podcast that I relate to as much as I relate to yours. And just you being open about what you're struggling with, how you're making moves, and I find that just so needful.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for the kind words. And I do believe you also sent a story demo as well. Thank you. And to everybody who sent story demos, don't worry if I take a bit of time to get back to you. The hotline number sometimes gets really flooded, but I respond to each and every one. Just maybe not as fast as you'd like, but I love reading the messages for myself. So don't worry, I'm definitely going to get to your message and I'm definitely going to hit you back. Do remember that this podcast also plays on Trace Radio here in Kenya. If you go to traceradio.co.ke, there's a list of all the frequencies that you can catch Trace on. Legally Clueless plays every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. and at 8 p.m. Oh, and also, in case you don't want to tune in the old school way, on traceradio.co.ke, you can also stream Trace there. That is such a tongue twister, but yes, you can. Okay, so Fal has just bust into my office with popcorn though, so at least you're bringing gifts. What's happening?
Sorry to disturb your recording, but I've made some popcorn.
In whose pots?
Your pot.
Did you burn it, Fal?
No.
You always leave the sufuria, the pot with like black things. In fact, my favorite pot has not yet recovered from your last popcorn situation.
I did Google, there's no burn.
You Googled how to make popcorn.
Without burning.
Alright. This is how you debut on Legally Clueless. Why are you running? Why are you running? That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.